Well, welcome back to Wisdom with the Wise Counselor. I'm your host, the Wise Counselor, also known by my birth name. It's simply Lateef. Family, today's episode is a very special episode. It's for a niche group of people. I'm talking about teachers, educators, people working in the field of education. Whether you are a teacher, a counselor, a paraprofessional, an administrator, a executive assistant, whatever, if you're supporting schools in any way, then this episode is for you, because I'm sure you might be feeling it just like I am. You know that summer for the bulk of us is OVER. And as we kick off another school year, I want to give you some powerful reminders. This episode is really for seasoned saints and people who have been in the field and are deeply committed to the profession. But I also think this is absolutely applicable and powerful reminders to the younger generation of educators, or even people who are entering their first year of education. Listen, I'm going to just be real with it. Education, the field of education has changed. It has changed in my 15 years of doing what I do. And I'm here to tell you, kudos for having the heart to serve in this capacity, but I ain't gonna lie. The work is draining. Is it rewarding? Yes. But the work is draining. Is it probably a part of your higher calling and purpose? Hopefully. But the work is draining. Are you going to be living in $1 million mansion next year? No. The work is draining. But if you are called to do this work, it's fulfilling. Right? And that is one thing that I always remember people saying, and I have to remind myself of this every day I walk onto my campus, is that the field of education is never going to produce millionaires. That kind of lifestyle, being in the field of education alone, you're just not going to live that kind of life. So I guess that's one thing that I want people to think about when we start talking about wellness and mental health and living your life on purpose and purpose. That's what this podcast is all about. We've got to be real. There has been a pretty large exodus of people over the last 5 years post-COVID who have gotten out of here. Things have changed. Priorities have shifted. And of course, people realize that the money ain't pouring in like other professions. So I say all of that to say there's some things that we need to be very intentional about thinking about. I'm not saying that you should just be sloppy with your work, because if you're working with people, I believe everybody deserves the best. I absolutely believe that. But I also want you to be reminded that you can never put yourself on the back burner. And so I don't want to spoil any more of the episode. This, again, is just really not necessarily about teaching. This is for everybody in the field of education, not just about students, but really this episode, if you fall into that niche of some type of educational professional, then this episode is for you. It's about your mental health. It's about your balance, because let's be real. If you lose your peace this year, you will lose your power. So let's start off with this. I want to remind you, number one, you are only one person. Somebody needs to hear that today. You can't be everything to everybody all the time. And when you try, and if you're anything like me, you've tried that, and then you've tried it again, and then you've tried it again, and then you told yourself you got to do better, and then you tried it again. Listen, you cannot be everything to everybody. When you do that, you don't just lose your energy, you lose yourself. Your classroom, your office, your program, it can only stretch as far as you can. You've got to be reminded that you are human and you are not a machine. The second thing I want to remind you about is compliance doesn't necessarily equal agreement. Compliance does not equal agreement. Well, let me say it this way. The reality is you work a job. That job pays you money. That job is not supposed to add extra layers of unnecessary stress to your life. And I feel like we've gotten into this space where we just associate work with being stressed. Like, those are two very big level themes that people draw connections to all of the time: stress and career, or stress and work. And we have really got to get honest about that, because career for so many of us is such a big part of our lives. So I can understand being stressful, but I can't support anybody remaining in any space that is absolutely tearing them down, making them continuously lose sleep. A job that is making you lose your health or literally putting you into an early grave, baby, that ain't for you. I'm here to tell you, I'm nobody's God. I'm not a God at all. But I'm here to tell you, your purpose will not kill you. The only person that I'm aware of whose purpose was to die for the sins of this world is Jesus. Okay? And I'm not going to put anybody that I know on this physical earth on the plateau or the platform of Jesus. So if your job is stressing you out to the point that it is robbing you of your health, baby, you got to find something else, because it ain't the right season. It ain't gelling. And I want people to live and thrive and prosper. And if you're just beating yourself over and over into a grave for whatever reason, maybe the people, maybe the system, maybe all the rules, whatever, maybe you weren't properly trained. I don't know why you might be feeling that way, but that is something not to ignore. And you've got to get real about that. Again, the job is not supposed to add a bunch of layers of stress to your life. Sometimes you've got to be compliant enough to move forward without carrying the weight of every new policy, every new demand, every new evaluation tool. Like it's a personal attack, right? I know so many people in the field of education that just take things so personally. We've got to learn how to let some of that stuff go and put things in their place. And I know that there are a lot of type A people that work in the field of education, but you have got to learn how to say, okay, I'll check the box and be at peace with that, right? That doesn't make you weak. That makes you wise. So be real strategic about what you choose to put your energy in and what you choose to stress about, because often the things that we're choosing to fixate on that are altering our personality just is not worth it. Here's another suggestion, or a tip, if you will. Keep first things first. I know y'all know that one. Keep first things first. Your family comes first. Your health comes first. Your peace comes first. We cannot afford to keep putting ourselves at the bottom of the list. And I know you've heard this before. You can't afford to keep treating yourself like an afterthought. Because here's the danger in that. If you don't take care of you, eventually you won't have the strength to take care of anybody else. Not students, not colleagues, not your loved ones, not even yourself. So you have got to learn how to identify boundaries and stick to the boundaries. And then you might have to fight and protect the boundaries. You're going to have to grow some thick skin here, because the world will rob you of your joy and your peace. And that is also in the field of education. I'm just being real today. So another tip I want you to think about is it's really not that serious. Again, I know there are a lot of type A personalities that work in the field of education, but let me be clear. I'm not saying that work isn't serious. That is not what I'm saying at all. But in the field of education, unless you are a mental health or a crisis responder, a school psychologist, a school counselor, a behavioral specialist, somebody who is really working in some potential life or death situations, baby, remember, it is not that serious. Kids deserve our best, but the things that they bring to us sometimes, and the things that sometimes even administration brings to us or the state brings us to us, it's not that serious. Okay. So remember that everything that comes across your desk cannot be an emergency anymore. Not every email deserves your stress. Not every so-called urgent situation deserves sleepless nights. You've got to learn how to filter what truly matters from what just feels loud in the moment. And let me drop this one into your spirit. I need to remind you of this. Your scope of practice, right? We were talking about life or death situations as a licensed counselor. You know, I've been in situations where, yes, I'm working with kids who are potentially thinking about hurting themselves or somebody else. That is a true life or death situation. Most classroom teachers are not dealing with that. And if they are, it is a rarity. To God be the glory, right? But I need you to remind yourself of your scope of practice. If that is your realm to deal with that type of crisis situation, then you probably aren't even listening to this podcast because you know how to take care of your mental health and wellness. Well, maybe you don't. So hopefully you're sucking in those messages too. But this is for people to be reminded. This is why schools have counselors and psychologists and interventionists and specialists. You can show up with love and you can go above and beyond, but when you choose to do that and act outside of your scope of practice, remember that comes at a cost. I don't want you to bankrupt your peace trying to do every job that is not yours, and definitely not trying to do a job that you are not trained and highly qualified to absolutely do. And I know that teachers wear many hats, but think about all of the roles that you have invited in. Don't add extra stress and pressure to yourself and your plate by doing something frequently that has absolutely nothing to do with what you should be doing. And again, our focus is on children. Absolutely. Academics in many schools is a secondary thought. We're talking about just basic life happenings is what a lot of teachers are focused on. But always try to get yourself grounded in what is the work you're supposed to be doing, right? And let me give you this tip. This is a kind of a gut punch one right here, but if something doesn't feel right, we've got to be comfortable speaking up about that. You know, we're in a time where advocacy is necessary at every level, right? Just like an aggressive parent is going to let you know when something didn't go right, or they were not pleased with something, or maybe slap you with a lawsuit. You need to take that same energy that they bring to the table and apply that to the things that you may be facing as an employee, right? This isn't just for kids, it's for you. So this evaluation-driven, data-heavy, politically charged environment that we're working in, it can break you down. And if you don't learn how to speak up about things that are on your heart and on your mind and that are not healthy in the environment that you are working in, that means that you're letting some of your power go. And that means if something is not right, if your working conditions are draining you morally, if you're being treated unjustly, if procedures are being violated, don't sit in silence. Tap into your teachers association, tap into your union, or talk to building reps, whatever the case may be, your HR person or assistant superintendent who deals with any type of hiring and procedures and personnel matters. Don't sit on in silence if something is not going right for you, because you're choosing to be there. You might need the money, but ultimately you're choosing to go to work each day. It should feel right. If it feels uncomfortable for too long, I need to let you know that silence will cost you more than your voice ever will. Do not sit in silence if something is not gelling with you or your team or in your organization. Figure out how you can confront that and how you can address those morale issues, or maybe just those things that are absolutely unprofessional or out of alignment with your contract. All right, that's that. I mean, again, I'm just being real with y'all. And I just had one final thought as I was sitting here. Real leaders teachers are all leaders. Educational professionals are all leaders. And we have to sometimes make sacrifices, right? And those sacrifices aren't always about giving more of yourself. Sometimes the sacrifice is saying no to the drama so that you can say yes to your peace. Sometimes it's about refusing to play the little petty games and play politics so you can focus on kids. And sometimes it's about putting your mental health first, and even when others don't understand it, right? Because your calling as an educator is to make learning fun and pleasurable and productive for kids. And it's also about learning how to make sure that we protect the environments that kids operate in so that they can truly learn. And that's what really being an outstanding educator is all about. Pushing out the drama and the noise, focusing on kids, doing what you have to do, even if it's a checkbox, and knowing that you're serving in a way that meets the needs of the people who are in your face each and every day. And at the end of the day, I just have to remind you that being the best educational professional that you can be, irregardless of your role within a school, it requires that you always remain clear-headed, that you are balanced, and that you remain unshaken by the nonsense. Because if you know anything like I do, there's a lot of nonsense. So here's the post-podcast homework assignments for this week. I want you to think about a couple of different things. Number one, I want you to identify your boundary line this week. I want you to write down one thing this school year that you refuse to compromise on when it comes to your peace. Did you hear me? What's one thing that you are not going to compromise on when it comes to your peace this year? I want you to also think about this. Number two, I want you to create and create a release ritual. Think about this one. Pick one small practice you'll do at the end of each workday that signals work is over and home has begun, because I got caught up in that for over a decade, bringing too much work home. Maybe it wasn't paperwork, but it was my mind. It was my spirit. It was my emotions caught up in things that I really couldn't do anything about, especially off-site, and especially with people who were not my own children. You have to be willing to create this kind of release ritual that you can say, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out of here. It's time for me to go take care of the kids. It's time for me to go to the gym. It's time for me to go take care of my puppies at home. It's okay to have a life outside of school. You have to. And that's required, because if you keep just waking up, going to work, coming home, waking up, going to work, coming home, even if you do that and you have the weekends to look forward to, baby, you still gonna burn out. And that is the truth. So again, I'm rambling on this. I want you to create a release ritual. Pick one small practice that you'll do at the end of each workday that signals that your job is over for the day and that your home life has begun. So it could be a walk, a playlist, or even just saying it aloud that I'm done for today. And I have done that. I have literally implemented that in my life. When I know that it is time for me to be done, I literally say, Lateef, it is time to go home. And you know what I do? I go home. And I've learned how to do that. And I've learned how to be at peace with that. And really anything that's lingering, I don't care about in that moment, because you know what, Lateef, it is time to go home. And that has pierced my heart. And I've learned how to let that weight go. Because this is the other thing. When you leave work, you enter into the portal of your real life, and you'll realize that there's other things that are going to take your attention and your energy, and you only got so much energy to give, right? So put the boundary up. And this is the last post-podcast homework assignment. I'm rambling on this one today, but I'm really passionate about the health and wellness of people who are committing their lives to helping children in the field of education. And so I want to remind you of this. You have to find your support system. Yes, most people who are sticking around in education love kids, want to help, have a servant heart. That's pretty much a given, or you're not going to be around long. But I need you to remember the importance of finding your support system. List the people inside and outside of school that you can go to when you need to vent, you need to recharge, and you need to be reminded of your worth, because we know that often teachers don't get applause. People in education don't get applause. There's too many people in the day-to-day operations of schools to be focused on what people are doing, especially if it's just their job. So I don't necessarily know that people need to be recognized for doing their job, but I will tell you this, it feels good. And sometimes you need to get your bucket filled by somebody who knows what you are walking through, that you have an intimate relationship and that you can just be real, raw, and honest with. So surround yourself with positive people who know and love you and who are committed to encouraging you. And hopefully in turn, you can give that back to them too, because everybody needs to be lifted and feel important. And that's outside of the field of education, but particularly people who are in a very rigid and draining profession that takes a lot out of you emotionally. So, and that is the thing too. If you're doing the job right, you are going to be emotionally exhausted because you're committing to showing up for kids, irregardless of content, irregardless of taking attendance or working the front office or whatever you do. When you're working for people, there is an energy that it sucks the life out of you. And that is also evidence that you're doing what you can do, but you've got to have deep-rooted strategies and a commitment to get yourself out of any type of valley that is too deep or that you've been in for too long. And it just takes time in this very crazy, fast-paced field to understand how to do that. So if you are a seasoned veteran, keep on going. Every year is great. We make it. You've done it. Celebrate that. And if you're newer to the profession, I want you to really think about the grit that it's going to take to be successful, because you're going to have to not only master becoming an educator and working with kids, but you also are going to have to master what it means to take care of yourself, because you're going to have to tap into skills and strategies that I guarantee you've never had to tap into. And I'm talking about skills and strategies to take care of yourself that you've never had to tap into. Why? Because you've never been in the field of education. So it's easy to take care of yourself when you know the situation and you know the pressure. But if you're walking in a new career, you're learning that pressure as you go. So I think that comes back to making sure you have a support team. Well, family, I haven't been on this podcast for a while. And again, I was rambling today, but I'm not going to edit this down. You know, I think it's important for people to hear some of the real, raw, gritty, honest truth about the field of education. I love what I do. I love people. You know, do I see myself doing what I'm doing forever? Absolutely not. Do I see myself serving people for the rest of my life? Absolutely. And so right now, this is where, you know, the good Lord has me, and I'm always open and receptive to change, and I'm open to what the universe has for me. And so I hope and pray that if that is your narrative and your journey, that you're just simply trusting the process and keeping people first. And you know, what's meant for you will be for you. And so in closing, family, I just want to say this. Regardless of what comes your way, I know that you have the strength to overcome it. The question is, do you want to overcome it? And that's up for you to decide. And I want to make sure that if you are a younger person in the field, or if you are somebody who's really deeply passionate about career, I would invite you to listen back to my previous podcast. It was called The World of Work, where I was diving and will continue to dive into themes of work and how that impacts our mental health. This episode happened to focus on work because it was for teachers, but it's not a part of that new series of that. But if you do like thinking about wellness and mental health and how the world of work and careers have shifted, then check that out. I'll be dropping out another episode of that soon. I've got some great things planned, but as you know, I do work in the field of education, and it has been pretty busy these last couple weeks. But I wanted to get this episode out. It's real, it's raw, it's gritty, it's honest. Let me give you that nugget to chew on as I close here. Doesn't matter how you do it. It's just that you do it. Sometimes perfection ain't the goal. It's about getting that check mark and moving forward and having peace with that. Because everything that we face in life does not deserve perfection, and it doesn't deserve all of you. Sometimes you can just say, okay, that's good enough, and be okay with that. Learn to suck that knowledge up. That's Wisdom with the Wise Counselor. So I want to thank you for joining me on Wisdom with the Wise Counselor. Check out the latest episodes. I'm going to be committing to continuing to do the work and get on here as much as I can. Bear with me for the next couple weeks as I get a new routine down. And I can't wait to see what the universe has in store for you and for me and for this podcast as we move forward. Know that I believe in you. Know that I know that whatever you face, you've got the strength to make it through. Tomorrow, next week, next weekend, whatever, next year, you can get through it. I know you can. Stay grounded in you, trust in you, and trust the process. This is life, and life be lifing. And I'm grateful for where I'm at right now. And I sure hope that your heart is telling you to be grateful for where you are right now. So thank you for listening to me ramble as I just have a moment of reflection here. Until next time, be well.